16-year-old Alona trudged along the narrow dirt path leading to her small, bamboo and thatch home nestled in the hills of a sleepy Filipino town. The early morning sun painted the sky in soft hues of orange and pink, but Alona barely noticed. Her hands clutched a small, worn notebook, the only treasure she had left from her childhood dreams. Inside were lyrics she had written in secret, songs she had sung softly to herself when the world felt cruel and lonely. Her stomach, already showing the gentle curve of her pregnancy, made the journey even more exhausting. Neighbors watched her pass, some stared with pity, some whispered judgment behind their hands, and a few offered gentle smiles or a nod of encouragement. Alona kept her head down, feeling the weight of their eyes and the invisible burden of her mistakes. Her childhood, once full of laughter and schoolyard games, had been replaced with fear, shame, and the heavy responsibility of carrying a life within her. At home, her mother quietly prepared rice porridge, pretending not to worry too much, though worry was written all over her face. She glanced at Alona and said softly, "You're stronger than you think, Anik." Alona nodded, her throat tight with unshed tears. She knew her mother worked long hours, barely making ends meet, yet she still found time to care, to comfort, and to love unconditionally. Alona paused at the edge of the garden, inhaling the crisp morning air. She touched her belly gently, whispering to the baby growing inside her, "I'll do my best for you, I promise." In that quiet, sacred moment, she made a silent vow: no matter what the world said about her, she would rise. And somewhere deep in her heart, she knew that her voice, the one she had hidden for so long, would be her weapon, her gift, and her hope for a brighter future. The sun blazed overhead as Alona joined the long line of hopefuls outside the massive AGT Manila arena. Thousands of contestants jostled for space, their excited chatter mingling with nervous whispers. Alona adjusted the strap of her simple white dress, feeling the weight of her growing belly more acutely with every step. Her slippers were worn, soles thin from years of walking the hilly paths of her village, yet here she was, standing among dreamers with polished shoes and practiced smiles. People glanced at her as she shuffled forward. Some offered polite nods, others whispered behind their hands, and a few stared openly at her condition. The attention made her cheeks burn, and she clutched her folded medical checkup form tightly, as though it could shield her from their judgment. Doubts gnawed at her. What will the judges think of me? Will they see me as a burden? Or will they see my voice, the only thing I truly have to give? Alona's mind drifted to her mother, who had woken before dawn to prepare her breakfast and remind her, with a quiet smile, that courage was about showing up even when fear weighed heavy. She thought of her unborn child, kicking gently against her stomach as if urging her forward. Every step felt heavier than the last, but she forced herself to breathe deeply, repeating a silent mantra: "I am not my mistakes. I am my voice." By the time she reached the entrance, Alona's knees shook, and her hands trembled. She adjusted the notebook tucked under her arm, taking one final look at the bustling line behind her. She had arrived at the crossroads of her life, a chance to sing not just for herself, but for her baby, for her mother, and for every whispered doubt that had followed her through the hills of her small town. With one last deep breath, she stepped through the doors, ready to face the stage and the world. The heavy stage curtains parted, and Alona stepped into the blinding lights of the AGT Manila stage. The roar of the crowd felt distant at first, a muffled hum behind the pounding of her own heart. She squinted against the brightness, seeing the judges' faces clearly for the first time. Simon Cowell's sharp eyes studied her with curiosity, Heidi smiled with gentle encouragement, while the other judges leaned forward, intrigued. The audience gasped softly as their gaze fell on her belly. Whispers ran through the rows, and Alona's stomach fluttered with nervous energy. Was this a mistake? Would they see her as just a pregnant teen, not a performer? Her fingers clenched the notebook she had carried all this way, the one thing holding the memory of her voice and the story she had lived. Simon's voice broke the silence. "And what brings you here today?" he asked, calm but piercing. Alona's throat tightened. She opened her mouth to speak, her voice trembling, but her message was clear: this was more than a song. This was hope. I want to give my child a life better than mine," she said softly, her eyes lowering to the stage floor. This is the only gift I can offer." A hush fell across the arena. Even the crew behind the cameras seemed to stop moving. The judges exchanged glances, a mixture of surprise, sympathy, and curiosity in their eyes. The first chords of her chosen song began to play. Alona straightened, lifted her head, and took a steadying breath. The world narrowed to just her, the microphone, and the story she had to tell. Every fear, every doubt, every whispered judgment melted away. For the first time in months, she felt something stronger than fear, purpose. And with that, she began to sing. As the first notes filled the air, Alona closed her eyes, letting the music guide her trembling voice. The lyrics she had written in secret, tucked safely in her notebook, poured from her heart like a river long held back. Her voice cracked on the first verse, not from weakness, but from raw emotion. Every note carried the weight of sleepless nights, whispered judgments, and the quiet courage it had taken to carry her child alone. The audience fell silent, captivated. Some clasped their hands over their mouths, others wiped away tears, unable to believe that such power could come from someone so young, so fragile-looking, yet so determined. The judges leaned forward in their seats. Simon Cowell's usual mask of stoicism began to falter. Heidi's hand pressed to her lips as tears formed, and the others sat frozen, moved beyond words. Alona's eyes scanned the crowd, feeling the shared empathy, the collective heartbreak, the glimmer of hope. Each note spoke not only of her struggles, but also of her dreams for her unborn child, a life of love, dignity, and possibilities she herself had been denied. She sang of sacrifice, of resilience, of the fierce bond between a mother and the life growing inside her. By the final chorus, the entire arena had risen to its feet. Tears streamed freely, not just from the judges and audience, but from crew members backstage and fellow contestants who had been watching in awe. Some held hands tightly, others whispered prayers. Every heart in that room beat in rhythm with Alona's story, recognizing the bravery it took to stand there and bare her soul. As her final note lingered, quivering yet strong, the stage was filled with a silence so profound it felt sacred. For a fleeting moment, the world stopped, and all that remained was a young girl, a song, and the unstoppable power of hope. If you want, I can expand scene 5 next, the golden buzzer moment, for the ultimate emotional climax. Do you want me to do that? The final note of Alona's song hung in the air, fragile yet full of life, like the heartbeat of her unborn child. Silence enveloped the arena for a heartbeat, then erupted into an emotional roar. The audience jumped to their feet, clapping and cheering, some wiping tears from their faces. Backstage crew and fellow contestants embraced one another, overwhelmed by the raw power of her performance. Simon Cowell sat frozen for a moment, his usual skepticism replaced by awe. He leaned forward, eyes glistening, and whispered under his breath, "This is incredible." Slowly, deliberately, he rose from his seat, walked toward the golden buzzer, and pressed it. A shower of gold confetti exploded over Alona, glittering like stars against the darkened stage. She froze for a moment, overwhelmed, then placed a trembling hand over her belly, whispering softly, "We did it, we're going to be okay." Heidi rushed to hug her, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. The other judges joined, creating a circle of support around the young teen whose courage had broken through every stereotype and prejudice. Simon, rarely known for sentimentality, knelt down beside her, looking into her eyes. "Your baby will grow up knowing that their mother is a fighter," he said. "Someone who faced the world and never let it crush her spirit." Alona's chest heaved as she took in the moment, the applause, the cheers, the recognition that her voice, her story, and her courage had touched thousands. She realized that this was bigger than her mistakes, bigger than the whispers of shame that had followed her through the hills of her village. In that glittering, golden moment, Alona understood that life could change with one brave act, one song, and one belief in herself. And as she held her belly and smiled through tears, she knew, she wasn't just singing for herself anymore. She was singing for the future of the child she loved more than anything, and nothing could ever take that away.